The program na Good Morning Salone, and it come to you from 98.1 FM. Well, as una hear also from headline this morning, we will can look at the reason we make President Bill suspend Lara Taylor Pierce and the deputy inside the program. Last week, Thursday, news come out say government suspend Lara Taylor Pierce and the deputy, and from that same day to now, with the democracy, don't they get a different interviews them for know the reason why this be. Well, the first person we will start with this morning, we will begin with the press secretary and presidential spokesman, Yusuf Keke Thomas Sandi.
Yes, I can confirm, say, the Secretary of the President, they write a letter, we come up from through the President's instruction, obviously, as by the Constitution we provide. And the letter then be written to the chairman of the Board of the Audit Service Sierra Leone for the suspension of the Auditor General and a deputy when Mr. Tamba Momo.
So now, as this letter does reach to the Auditor General and in deputy, take me through the process where una use say the letter reach to the Auditor General and in deputy.
The Audit Service Sierra Leone now a public institution where they led by people who are public officials. And whilst we recognize, say, by the Constitution, that in the exercise of their function, nobody never subjects them to any direction or control by any personal authority. But it also means, because the Audit Service Sierra Leone now institution in the embodiment of accountability, anytime when there are allegations of misconduct or lack of professional performance, the president gets a responsibility for make sure, say, then allegations of misconduct, then for look into them. And the only way for look into them is through a process we spelled out by the Constitution. So when there are allegations of misconduct, then they come. Now the president he delegates, because part of the president's in power as well in section 53, subsection 1, it tells you, say, the president can able to delegate in executive authority for make any cabinet minister perform. We also include deputy ministers or any public officials we subordinate. So through that one, the president say, okay, make the office of the Attorney General, make them preside over for see how we will able to set up this tribunal. But the constitution is very clear on within the process. So what happened? So before the suspension, on the 8th of November, the Deputy Minister of Justice writes a letter to the chairman of the Judicial Legal Service Commission. Now in that letter, the way he writes, now for bringing to the attention of the chair, the Honorable Chief Justice, about them allegations there we don't come inside. And also for me them trigger what them call section 137, subsection 5, where they tell you about the process for the tribunal and waiting for happen. When the letter they go in, obviously because they don't inform the Judicial Legal Service Commission. So at that point in time, it's very clear, say, that because this matter, they already don't start the process for the tribunal, therefore, by section 137, subsection 6, then talk say the president gets the power now for suspend the Auditor General and deputy because of the allegations we don't can.
Okay.
And I think say the important thing for realize that the fact say these are processes the way president quite very committed, because as guardian of the Constitution, they want to make sure that they are followed.
Okay, so before we come to how then set up the tribunal committee, we look into the misconduct, the alleged misconduct of the Auditor General and the deputy. Start for tell listeners then first, waiting to be the misconduct where the president pick up when them feel say them need for suspend the Auditor General.
Well, they not start for looking to the misconduct dates, because obviously, like I said to you, at the Constitution, the Judicial Legal Service Commission, then they on that process they now for make with the president in consultation. But then section 53, subsection 3, it tell you say that USAI president get for consult to inquire with anybody else, not for inquire into that. So we go comment on that.
So now, which form of misconduct?
Well, there are various forms. And I think say also because this now matter now to go before tribunal, I think it's very important for make we comment on some of those allegations then they, because make we not prejudice the outcome of the tribunal. Because at the end of the day, we all want for make we get an audit service Sierra Leone. We're very credible, we're very transparent, we're very independent in the exercise of their functions, not to any mechanism or process for which owns anybody. When we come as a government, the audit service alone, we get about 27 billion in budgetary allocation. Over these past years, for more don't come, we don't increase until 60 billion. So then they tell you, say, even for we as a government, we want to give audit alone everything we then take for make them perform their function professionally. But you know, only stop there. We also make sure, say, for more come, we don't increase the salaries of all audit and staff by 25%.
So the government they sense anything like the Auditor General in office not credible again as first term?
No, we no one subject any process to speculation. We no one subject any process to rumors and then say. So other people they talk say, oh, and then they leak some reports them, leak information them. There are people where they target the president, they blackmail president. We as a responsible government and as a responsible presidency, we no one subject anything to rumors and speculations. We believe, say, when allegations then come forward for misconduct or lack of professional conduct, I think that president's responsibility as somebody we're very committed in the fight against corruption and for transparency and accountability, for make sure say they look into them allegations then they through a process we're guided by the constitution.
Okay, so people am concerned on social media now the process where government use for suspend because according to the constitution they're supposed to form tribunal committee where for look into the alleged misconduct where they na the letter where they present to Auditor General and then present recommendation to president and based on that recommendation the president will look and suspend the Auditor General and in deputy. Then we go through that process there.
Well, of course, like I said, the process then be followed. We get a letter which should say that process did then be triggered, where then call the chairperson in attention for the Judicial Legal Service Commission for then trigger for make them make recommendations for make the look into them in there, you know. So I will also confirm to you and tell you say that tribunal they will get for set them up.
So they're not set them up yet?
No, because like I said to you, waiting they happen according to the process, the Judicial Legal Service Commission, they make a representation to the president. And I understand say obviously they don't meet in an emergency meeting where that has already been done for make the inquiry into that one day. Now whether we get a tribunal way very independent, a tribunal way meets the qualification we set out in the constitution, because section 137 subsection 5 paragraph A, they tell you who are them for this tribunal. We'll definitely get for make sure say we meet that qualification day and people will know say very credible. But more importantly, now for make sure say the Auditor General, we obviously they're on suspension and deputy, then get an opportunity, a fair hearing, an opportunity for able to respond to net allegations and data.
Okay, so if the tribunal committee investigate and look into this matter and not find them guilty of the allegation, possibility they say them will get a walk back?
Yeah, the constitution is very clear on that one day. Like I said to you, section 137, subsection 6, it tell you obviously waiting will be the outcome of the tribunal. Within the tribunal, if obviously the tribunal then find out say them in their way then say obviously not in their way they don't meet them the threshold the constitution talk waiting for happen to them. The Auditor General we can meet an office or to the president be appointed. So if not anything where then get against Auditor General or anybody they work there or in deputy, for more come from that 3 years they force. There was nothing we could don't make presidents no go on sack him or what them call. But president they left Auditor General office and president we support the audit service and president make sure say then get everything we takes for make it doing work accordingly.
Yusuf Keke Thomas Sandy, press secretary and presidential spokesman, they talk about the reason we make government suspend the Auditor General Lara Telopias and the deputy from office. We continue with the program and we will continue for bring interviews on that issue day.
And we turn out the program this morning, we can look at the issue of the suspension of the Auditor General Lara Telopias and one of the deputy them Samba Momo as on Thursday last week. We've been see what we've been coming now say the office of the president don't put them on suspension. And from that time day to now, different people on the explain as to waiting bidon reactions after that particular information they become to the public. At the studio this morning, I want to welcome Ibrahim Tommy, the executive director for CAL. They don't work on issues we get for do with accountability and rule of law for so many years now. We don't get them on different issues then. And I want the institutions then we know say already after that information they been come out, it been go now in social media handle them for tell the public waiting in our own position as to that particular information we been Camnado, and we don't listen to the press secretary Yusuf Keke Thomas Sandy as he been make attempts for explain as to why the office of the president suspend Lara Tilopias and one of his deputy Tamba Momo. Good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Tommy.
Good morning, Mabel. Thank you for having me.
Well, in as much as we don't listen to Keke Thomas Sandy, we in the press sector in our State House, they make attempts for explain to the public as to how the office of the president reached to the decision for suspend Lara and one of his deputy. We go on for know from the civil society angle, you come out from accountability and rule of law. You don't monitor the kind of situation for a very long time now. Let me just start for know how Carl been received the information they foresee the office of the president don't suspend the Auditor General and one of his deputy.
Of course, it was received a shock, and you make reference to me Facebook post. I described the decision as shocking, ill-advised, and unfortunate. And obviously, for we done in this space for a long time, as shocking as the decision was, it not be quite surprising, because as I know this now mattered on the Rob Boulon from the beginning of this year at least. When we don't see accusations and counter accusations. Civil society even get in there for resolve them, but I think we feel as civil society we could have done more, but that's a completely different issue. But like I say, we received the news with shock. We think say the timing be wrong. We think say it was ill-advised. Obviously, the government could have done and should have done better, because again, there may very well be good reasons. I'm not privy to the reasons so the government get against Lara Tilopias and a deputy. They may very well have strong reasons. But waiting, what they say is, first, there is a question of due process. Secondly, there is a question of timing. Why now? And then finally, the fact that the government not even proceed all of this action with clear explanations to the public, it left a lot of people asking questions. And so those are the key issues that we focus on.
I want to take you back to what you said just now. It's shocking, surprising, and not surprising. No. And also CSO, they work on this. I want to take them from that area, the way you say, not surprising. And also CSOs then they intervene in this. You can tell me what exactly wanna be intervening earlier before this. We make you say it's surprising.
It's not surprising. It's shocking, but it's not surprising in the sense that if you now recall, early this year, the Ministry of Finance, I think through the Financial Secretary, been toxic, a number of claims that they make. Say the Auditor General, they collect money, fees for the services within they provide to other MDs or indeed independent groups. And the fees within they collect, it say that for them they put on the treasury single account, but the Auditor General nobody put on there if they keep them for himself. Anything say it be wrong, so now one issue that be against the Auditor General. If we get several other issues, but that not be the key issues. The other one that we talk about was raise questions about procurement in the office of the Auditor General regarding the appointment of people at the Auditor General's office. So there were a lot of issues. On the side of the Auditor General, we did engage her, by the way. She was very clear that, listen, the money they collect, the fees that they collect for the services they provide, now money that we Parliament already approved, because, for example, if we say we budget for the year now 1 million euros, government they only allocate 750,000 euros. The 250,000 they collect in audit fees, now they use for top up the one government they give. So in BFC, now legitimate use of the money, and that the auditors the way they work for and Parliament they approve. So she had her own side of the story. But as I say, we ought to have stayed on. In fact, we met with the Minister of Finance, the Financial Secretary, and other actors in the Ministry of Finance. We also meet with Lara. They were all really cooperative. We came out with a report, and that report for them be, honestly, a roadmap to resolving this matter we had hoped, in a sustainable way. Unfortunately, not everyone who we bring on as part of that group be genuine. People had their own intent, and so we're not able to move forward. So maybe as civil society leaders, if we had worked with a clear picture, say this country, and now we all get time, we not get any, some sort of ulterior motive when we participate in these things. Maybe we for them go through and resolve them in a very sustainable way. But that doesn't excuse what we're talking about here. But I just want to tell Una, say this is not the rumble on for a very long time. And whilst to not see the official complaint against the Auditor General and in deputy, waiting very clear is that they expect some of the issues that I don't talk about, Una go see them in that complaint. Of course, the other thing back we come back was, the Office of the Auditor General, they leak audit reports or documents, and that then they suspect, say, they come from either the Auditor General or in deputy. So these are all allegations. But the point I make is, let's get back to this point, now that due process has to be followed. And I think I missed the shock, I missed the facts, say people question timing and all of that. Waiting perhaps for us as a rule of law institution, waiting really important is what the Constitution says and whether that process, as laid out in the Constitution, has been followed. And that is what I think this whole thing turns on.
So for the benefits of the one them we maybe not to abreast with the Constitution, you're not a legal practitioner and you don't make mention of whether due process was followed for suspend, then 2 people and they from Audit Service Sierra Leone. You go on for take listeners and through, especially section 119, where title 139 and subsection 9, where they talk about the Office of the Auditor General and procedures were supposed to be followed in terms of putting her on suspension.
So basically, section 119 referring to 137 of the Constitution, where they say the same process or procedure we use for remove a judge of the Superior Court of Judicature, now for use for remove the Auditor General. I find, by the way, I find that strange technically, because Office of the Auditor General perhaps they deal with things that we're not to GLSC for deal with, but that's a separate issue for constitutional review. Perhaps since we're part of the constitutional review process, that's something that we have to look at. But be that as it's made, that is a constitution, and that is the text of the law, and that will follow. So basically, waiting the section 137, they say is that if the Judicial and Legal Service Commission make a representation, keep in mind that the Judicial and Legal Service Commission therefore make a representation to the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone that a question of removing the Auditor General will arise, you understand? And that there is need to investigate that question of removing her. First, so remember that is a step. That question, that representation has to be made first by the JLSC. Now, once that representation has been made, the President, step number 2, the President now is supposed to, again, in consultation with the JLSC. So first the JLSC makes a representation. Second stage, the President now consults with the JLSC for appoint a tribunal, because President not just the SACAM. But matter of fact, President not get power for SACAM. Ultimately, in SACAM get for end up in a parliament. So what the President can do is, in consultation with the tribunal, with the JLSC, appoint a tribunal. That tribunal now get for investigate what are the basis or the reasons why they want suspend, why they want remove the Auditor General. Now, then at stage 2. Now, on the question of suspension, now, if the President feels while in this tribunal they investigate this person, the President can suspend them. You understand? The President now get the power for suspend them whilst then they investigate them. But ultimately, of course, if the tribunal recommend, say, yes, we get grounds, they still get for crown in the parliament and get 2/3 majority of parliamentarians for removal. But this is important, I now left this out. And this is what I will have to recommend at the end of the day. I don't advise the President, but I hope the President and members of the government are listening. But Section 137(6) also give the President the power for revoke that suspension at any time. So you can suspend them today, the president revoke him tomorrow. In light of, clearly we all agree, regardless of where we stand in the politics of this country, because, the thing that disappoints me most in most of the discussions, people don't come to discussions from position of principle. People let the shout, now rule of law. We know what their stance was on several of such issues in the past. But where they come to their discussions are from the position of principle, we have to tell the president that all is not lost. You can revoke the suspension. Under the Constitution, you have the power. Revoke the Constitution, get back to the normal process, involve the GLSC, let the GLSC, because the GLSC is not just the right, they also get for debate them at that level, discuss them, and come to a resolution, say, we agree, say there's a question of removing her. Then you take them full throttle. That is, if you really believe there are compelling reasons for removing her and perhaps her deputy.
So the office of the president in this case bypass the due process waiting for don't use for reach at suspending Lara and in deputy?
Sorry?
In this case, the office of the president bypassed the due process, so we just don't...
I think they rush him. I think, obviously, there were missteps. I don't see a letter now we dated 8 November, basically we predate the date where they announced the suspension, but still, that was just a letter from the Deputy Justice Minister to the AG. We don't have, to the CJ. We don't have any records of the GLSC meeting. We don't have records of the GLSC referring this to the president. So listen, you can save the day. And I think people are way close to the president. We all get the responsibility as citizens for advise the president in the interest of the country. I'm saying this, that the only way for resolve this and get this back, no house, no day on fire, revoke the suspension, start the process all over again, make sure. By the way, as far as I'm concerned, if this be consistent with due process, perhaps all for the express shock and questions about timing, but the question of due process, perhaps not the most important thing for an organization we made a run. All the other issues, nothing that we will go test at the level of the GLSC, the tribunal got for test time, and ultimately it's for Parliament to decide that. Quickly, as my notes one run, but let me say this. We've been here before. There's a Supreme Court judge now, right? And that's why when these things happen, I see people running up and down, I ask myself, where were all of these people? Then suspend that Supreme Court judge around 2009, 2010 for 4 or 5 years. He had even been suspended before then they set up a tribunal. The tribunal ended up for 4 years. They find nothing against him. He had cause to go to the ECOWAS court, but he was ultimately reinstated from a high court judge. Now he's right up in the Supreme Court. So the more things change, they say, the more they remain the same. But when some people they talk now like, oh, now today, then suddenly realize there are constitutional issues or rule of law issues for be angry about. I remember writing at least 10 letters to the Attorney General, Minister of Justice back then, and the head of the committee of the tribunal we don't pass, unfortunately. So these things, the more they talk about happening now, nothing is actually new in this country, unfortunately. Right. Now, just new players, perhaps new voices we get nowadays on these issues. What I'm saying essentially is this is wrong, it's gone wrong. Let's say it to the president as it is, as it should be. He has to revoke the suspension, get the right thing for be done. That way, all the questions about the process could be resolved.
Continuing further between the program, Ibrahim Tomi, Executive Director, Center for Accountability and Rule of Law. This morning, he make a strong case that President for revoke the decision where they make for suspend Lara Telopias and in deputy. And you don't talk strongly about the process we used in suspending the Auditor General and a deputy. Let me look at the role of Parliament there, because the Auditor General directly reports to Parliament, and also understand say there is an advisory board of Audit Service Salone. What's not your role in the kind matter there?
Unfortunately, I'm not seeing a rule as far as removing or the question of removing the Auditor General and Deputy concerned, which is why I said earlier on that perhaps since we review the Constitution, we get for now think seriously about Section 119 and 137, whether in fact now the GLSC they do that they exclusively, perhaps the advisory board. I'm not sure about the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament because they say ultimately then get something for do with the removal if it comes to that. But we really need, between the Ministry of Finance, the advisory board, we need a committee for raise the question of that. But at the moment, back to your question, they really get little or nothing for do with that one day, based on the provisions of the Constitution.
Okay, we'll can look at the revoke in the events it stand as it is inside the program. We also go to campaign for good governance, one of the civil society organization them we don dey monitor governance processes in the country. Marcela Samba Sise, the executive director, he explained.
Well, we'll be really surprised. In fact, a number of referees begin wonder, say, wetin this mean for good governance and accountability. Because the office of the Auditor General, the Audit Service Sierra Leone, now a very sensitive office when it comes to accountability and transparency. In fact, the entire budgeting process in the country, it is stopped with auditing. After Parliament don't look at a number of issues, in the final analysis, the Auditor General and in team get for look at whether the money the way them be allocated, as Parliament, whether the money then they may spend them, how, the judicious use of their resources then and if they may spend them in line with the accountability standard. But as you say, unfortunately, we not hear any public outcry about this office. Say people they complain, although in earlier this year there were issues with the Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance, and Parliament will all resolve them.
Even though we now get public outcry before the decision come against the Auditor General and in deputy, but you don't recently, una civil society don't look thoroughly as to the reason why may government take the decision.
In fact, this particular decision, not a popular decision, based on the number of press releases that we don't come out in the public, and equally so the national and international acclaim and support within two people here so don't get. But we need for understanding here and waiting at the implication for good governance. And now we hold the Sierra Leonean state together. And let we look beyond the law.
You say look beyond the law. You didn't talk so enough for consider the law in taking decision against this office?
No, the law important. Obviously, not through the law, everything there for a day. But looking at democracy and good governance beyond the law ain't getting you. In interpretation day, we don't see inside this country who side people then stand. Now they the law they broke. Now they the law they for them. We don't see who side vice president then Sakam. The court say the decision right. So there are loopholes in the law where people then use then gray areas then they for come out with certain decisions. So now I make us say, let me look beyond the law and let me look at how some of them decisions they are so not they build a cohesive and accountable society. One thing we'll get for accountability na the backbone of democracy. And so one thing we'll get for do now for try for make the institutions then be so strong so that democracy go all water. And
I actually say if una civil society, despite the amount of press releases, if una don't really look at the reason them where government don't give us to why the Auditor General and Deputy for go step aside first.
In fact, that is why I say the law go take in course. When they sit down at the tribunal, their issues then they go be addressed. But maybe they look at what this mean for the society. And as I tell you, I don't want for going to the law. Right? What this mean for the society? And what this mean for them people here so we don't sit home all those years, because this is one of the most celebrated public institutions. But unfortunately, right now, this decision don't come at a time where the nation they grieve, we for don't begin consider certain issues around how we for reform certain things them will come around from we response on the health sector or how for manage fire disaster. That all discussion they don't change. Now this don't can take over. So at every point in time, we're not able for settle down and see how the states for go. And all of them tell us so now the states now they suffer. And so now make us say let we look beyond waiting they happen. Let we look at how we able for manage with democracy and pay attention to the country. Because what they see on social media, for example, we get for understand the psychological states and emotion of them people they are so as well. Them people they are so in the serve, them country. And the manner, the way where people and the right thing them but them, the information where they go out but them people they are so. I don't think say they deserve that kind of treatment.
When you mentioned social media, we also they see some reasoning them within the give professional misconduct as to why the Auditor General in our office and it do certain things them way they beyond. Another issue of procurement and other things they already don't allege against them. In a situation of that nature, you think say it matter whether or not the 2020 audit report for commot, if person broke law, whether or not if for pull report or not, the law for taking course, to that person they will believe in that mentality.
I think say a number of people don't talk about the timing. And one of the things that we, the press release from the Budget Advocacy Network, we campaign for good governance and member, one of the things that we will talk about, we highlight the timeliness of the decision because everybody don't know, say, first week, second week, December, the audit reports, they don't be very timely for release the reports. And we don't highlight this whole question of the timing with this particular decision, they come.
Marcela Samba Sise, Executive Director for CGG, they explained to Michael Sambola about CGG position on the suspension of the Auditor General and a deputy. Well, the Deputy Minister of Information, Solomon Jamiru, be don't agree for CAM this morning. And just where the program they go, he send text message say, I am deeply sorry that I can't make it to the studios this morning. I am prepared to participate in future discussions. My kind apologies. So we're not going to forget government side this morning. As the Deputy Minister of Information, Solomon Jamiru, say, you're not going to make it to the studios this morning. We continue with the program, Good Morning Salone, where they come to you from 98.1 FM, 8:26, at the time from the studio clock, and we continue the program. Quickly, before we go for break, Ibrahim Tommy, for such a very sensitive discussion on the suspension of the Auditor General and the deputy, and then the government official pull out. What do you think?
You put me on the spot there. I don't know why, but clearly on discussions like this, they expect a government. I mean, we hear it from Keketoma, but perhaps as the discussion they go on, the back and forth for them be helpful. So it's deeply regrettable that the Deputy Information Minister never can. But hopefully, until say we will participate in future discussions, hopefully we can. I'm sure this discussion will continue in the days and weeks ahead. Maybe we'll now get an opportunity for CAM, give the government a own side.
So as we continue the discussion and you be make mention of issue we get for do with the timing of this particular decision from the office of the president, not a secret say this not the time where people can already say the Auditor General for polling reports, send and go parliament and follow the public no waiting them fair notes. And already from seeing the way people be done the year, they be done the year, say this report for come on this time around. Gets a lot of challenge for this government, so they refer to as gamming. Well, we know the content of them. That's not waiting will be done there, but waiting this particular decision mean at this time suspending the Auditor General and one point deputy and people they expect to see this reports for come out Sando.
Clearly, not just obviously not the suspicion. We will talk about timing, a ban for real suspicion. Why now? Why now wait, let them release the report? That is why people are talking about timing. But let's be clear, that report get for common, the 2020 report get for common anyways. And if they don't already prepare the report, we'll not go see another version of elect another person take over. Because that person, they take over, not go do a fresh report altogether. Now the one way they don't do now. Their posts. I'm not going to comment on those, but there are obviously it seems to me that government get concerns based on them, and the people that they share them social media, obviously now people that we close or associated with the government. So it seems like they get concerns about the way the Auditor General they doing job, and they compare what they do try and what they do now. So there are so many issues. So which is why I have said, all of that aside, just follow due process. Now, the standard, the burden is really high. The members of that tribunal for B people we qualify for B. I think Supreme Court, the head of the tribunal, at least for B, somebody qualified for B, Supreme Court judge. So not to people and get for them the tribunal. And even at the level of the GLS, I'm sure they go exhaustively discuss you understand? But regardless of what they go on na the tribunal, the government still go get a own case for make to the public. And I think waiting shock a lot of people, and that we don't see some of them discussions there even before that decision was made. After the decision was made, people are now asking for reasons, and then we started seeing snippets of what the government may have against them. All of that, as I say, even from communication point of view, it wasn't properly handled. But as I say, for save the day, just revoke them and get started all over again.
We continue with the program. 8:32 now the time for my studio clock. We come again over to Ibrahim Tomi. We don't make strong case say government for revoke the decision we they make for suspend the Auditor General Lara Tilopias and one pine deputy there, Tamba Momo. Now let me look at the statement where you make for revoke and start all over. In your explanation, you make mention of the due process, how we before go, but from look of things, it's like now the reverse, the other way around. What if government not revoke this decision and go ahead and set up the tribunal?
What if? I don't know how to respond to that. And they definitely believe, there's a misstep. They don't rush them. They don't sidestep the process. And all I can do at this stage is to advise, even if me not a presidential advisor on such matters, but as a civil society leader, I'm your advice than they. Now, there are a range of options. You can go until the tribunal, except for the setup, that very tribunal, the first objection where the people that they represent, I guess, Lara Tilopias and Tamba Momo, now for let them go raise an objection as to process. So until the tribunal look into that, the very tribunal would then just, sustain the objection and then tell the presidency they cannot proceed because the process was flawed. So another option that person can even go to court, Supreme Court, and go guide the Supreme Court for reversal. So listen, avoid all that one day. And they say, no matter how far you have gone on the wrong road, don't hesitate to return. If you go Bo, you begin to take route for go McKinney, like you don't reach yourself, just get forget for come back and go back Bo. So that's what you do. And sometimes we're all human beings. We all get a bad day at the office. We all, as journalists, as lawyers, as activists, we all get a bad day at the office. Sometimes we just need to be humble, human enough for no say we get something wrong. And I tell you, the people of Salome know they are more likely for even forgive you if you come to them and say, yes, we got it wrong. But the fact is that we get compelling grounds for belief, say there's a question for removing the Auditor General and her deputy, but let we go back and do the process. I really think, a lot of people, I mean, in particular, go obviously come back and hail the presidency if they do that. Let we not subject this to ifs or buts, because I feel, along the way, that matter get for come up, and it becomes an abacus around the neck of the presidency. Let's just get it right and proceed.
I just want to clarify something when you talk earlier. Say the president not gets the power, no say for do what you do with the Lara Tilopias in case. So even with in like supreme executive authority where they can use, can use that for do that.
Well, no, like clarify to say the president obviously in consultation with the GLS can set up a tribunal and then it can suspend them while that tribunal they work. So yes, president gets something for doing that. Now on the question of actually removing her, that decision, once the tribunal find and say the allegations against them, the tribunal finds say then they are well grounded, then now get for a fund to parliament for make that decision. Now, your question was
the supreme executive.
Oh yes,
the powers of the president.
So here is me. So by the way, we all been very much criticized the former president for his sacking vice president. That matter go Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decide. Obviously, I'll be critical of the decision, but after the decision, I can't talk and I say former vice president Victor Fo. Now vice president because the Supreme Court don't agree say the former president sacking vice president lawfully. Now, but me, for the life of me, not go ever justify any decision based on that Supreme Court judgment. If person want for be self-serving or opportunistic, you can very well argue say by that decision, the president can even change man into woman or woman into man or do anything as long as that person they fall within the executive branch of government. But I mean, will be the last person for advise the president for invoke the powers of the Supreme Court game under that Samsumana in decision for exercise them against. So, by the way, if the president, this is a good question, Asma. If the president be don't put out a statement say, they rely on my powers under the Supreme Executive Authority, we then define or interpret that the Supreme Court and Saklara. Obviously, no safe for be controversial, but at least then we'll get. Even though obviously you go say, when I be criticize the Supreme Court, would there be do that one day, but why you carry rely on that now? So then it will be opportunistic, but it will be perhaps it will be controversial, but for different reasons than what we're discussing right now. So when you say that, it makes me feel that this was an attempt to do the right thing. Unfortunately, it wasn't done in the way it ought to have been done. So give them some small credit, then they try to follow the process, but unfortunately, then get them wrong. But again, if they be used Supreme Executive Authority, it obviously for them be controversial for different reasons than what the controversy is about right now.
So this particular decision from State House, not to any kind issue where something you will discuss like not to happen between citizen and a company citizen or at a lower level. This comes right from the office of the president. So and you state earlier, so this ill decision advice where the person give the president for like act this kind of way. What do you mean moving forward for especially if you look at the rule of law for like we miss certain things then where they come. Same way we get a sitting attorney general, then we see the president. They miss issues we get for do with legality.
Well, again, as I said earlier on, everybody can get a bad day at the office, may bail. And the president is human, the age is human, they are all human beings. I think you just need for sure humility once in a while, or all the time actually. When you get them wrong, raise your hands and say you get them wrong. But we definitely, that's why we exist as civil society activists. We really hope so we'll not get moments like this, but when they happen, that's why we exist. We have a responsibility. We owe it to our consciences and to the people of this country, and definitely to the leadership for tell truth, to the leadership say this has gone wrong, but you can remedy it. So that's what we're doing. Every time it occurs, and I keep saying this, every time a rule of law, accountability issue occur, me, I know they follow noise. I mean, sometimes people say, talk me. I don't talk because people they talk for different reasons in this country. On the line of duty, on my convictions, on the law, on the facts, on the issues we Carly work on. Anything will happen, I'm happy to lend my voice to it. People talk for different reasons. People lending are politicians, they want to get noise for the political purposes. People lending and get an ulterior motive. But I have been doing this for at least a decade, and I like to protect my image and reputation. I don't get dragged. I don't do this for public validation. Nope.
All right. So let we say President decide for listen to what you talk and when you advise and invoke waiting happen. So which effect you think say this go get on Lara in work for audit people and institution in the country?
Good question about effect on this. So this is the problem. And right now, what that means basically is that is in a very important question ask mine in a very quiet way. Now, what do you think this mean? If you look at the letter with the Deputy Justice Minister, right, it referred to the president, say the president don't get complaints about Lara and deputy professional conduct or lack thereof. So clearly what this shows is that there is now a sort of gulf. There is tension. There is acrimony. Kind of clearly there will be lack of cooperation moving forward. Whether the president revoke him, he come back, he continue for work forever until retire, at least for as long as the BR administration they in power, that cooperation not there for day. Now,
So
you could argue that it no matter. No. In fact, if I want for be selfish, I go say yes. In fact, now that I want, let the Auditor General and the executive let them know be cozy with each other. That way, or man keep you in line, you do a professional job, right? But listen, the flip side of that is that all what the Auditor General they do, I'm sure then self want now for make sure so when they make findings and recommendations that there is willingness on the part of the executive for implement the recommendations, give them the resources for do their job. Now, the other thing we have for deal with is if you get the government, we say, oh, there's someone there who I don't trust, who has lost my confidence. Because some of the things that we are hearing now, it clearly shows that there is some conflict, confidence gap, right? Oh, why did they do this? Why they do this now, but they do this today? When they ask questions like that. Why does it happen? This not happen. So waiting really, that is why I can't stop going back to what we had set out to do as civil society leaders. Now, before getting there and make sure we address that confidence issue, but we didn't do it. So going forward, you get for sit down I really hope sit and go revoke this, reinstate them, let them continue for doing their job. But beyond that, there's a role for civil society leaders, there's a role for other actors in government, outside government, for help rebuild that trust, for make sure the Auditor General continue for being independent, but more importantly, in findings and recommendations are acted upon. Quickly, Asma, when they interviewed Lara Piaz, I think it was in 2020. I remember it was a BBC interview. I clearly had her say, listen, one more when I posed the question, do you think that there's a deterioration in the whole public finance management landscape? I said, no, I don't think so. I think there's been an improvement in terms of understanding of the issues. So that's something to hold on to, you understand them, and rebuild that trust. But if we not find a way for rebuild that trust, what might happen are many. One, they not cooperate. Two, if findings then go ignore them, they go begin treating them like saying a mere opinion as we here in the past. And then for we as citizens, we go suffer because it's about our money, it's about our resources, it's about holding those who manage our public funds accountable.
You also make mention of the Supreme Court judge will be suspended for the whole process take 4 or 5 years, and then he come back. So what's not be the role of the GLSC at that time when you compare to this particular case now?
So again, it was pretty much what happened was, in fact, they did not revoke his suspension, unfortunately. He was suspended, and then later they referred the matter to the GLSC. Later the GLSC referred the matter to the president. The president then appointed this tribunal. So in fact, as I said, he was suspended even before the tribunal was appointed. In fact, when he go now the tribunal, he go question the tribunal on the rules of procedure. He walked out. But thank goodness, the person at the head of the tribunal, unfortunately, he's deceased now, inquire into the thing and come out with a report and say, no, the allegations against the man, there not be get evidence for sustain the allegations against him. So, but even while that was going on, the man ended up for going to court as part of the out of court settlement, and even the fact that the report clear in him, they reinstate him. He's way up there now serving us. So there are so many lessons for learn from Danny that anybody with the constitution secure, like a judge, and that's why when we talk about judicial independence, sometimes people don't even get it. The judges, let's put it this way, the judges don't get any reason for pervert justice. So people like say, oh, political interference. No. It had for sack a judge in this country, just as it had for remove a president or for remove an auditor general. Right. So they are all the positions and really secure. So let's just work in the interest of the people of this country.
Continue for the between the program. 8:46 at the time for studio clock. More and more people continue for show concern with regards this situation. Well, now we go listen to Rashid Dumbuya, the director for Legal Link.
Section 1196 of the Constitution, the General gets some rights of independence, and nobody not for interfere with in work and direct them or control them, when they do in work. And when you go further and look at Section 119 subsection 9 of the Constitution, it tells you how you for remove this person. So in the event you want for remove them, the law say the provision of Section 137 of the Constitution related to the removal of a judge of the Superior Court of Judicature other than the Chief Justice could apply to the removal of the Auditor General. So the Constitution gives a judge-like status when you want for removal. You remove as how you remove a judge of the Superior Court of Judicature. And so this simply means that the Auditor General they enjoy a judge-like status and can only be removed in the same way as they remove a judge. Now, a difficult process. And so if you go to Section 137, it will tell you exactly the process on how 137 of the Constitution, it will tell you exactly how to remove them. A very long and tedious process. But when you look at Section 5 of Section 137 of the Constitution, it will tell you, say, first, there should be a representation from the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, and therefore represent regarding the question to the President regarding the question of removing the Auditor General. So we asked the question generally as CSOs, was it a solo decision by the President? Now, question another way, we all go on for no, whether in fact now the Judicial and Legal Service Commission now then represent to the Presidency for remove the Auditor General, or now the President take decision on his own.
Yeah, because again, the letter we come out from the Deputy Minister, now one way people get concerned for again say not to in own role and for sign a particular letter. So in this case, as person we know the law. Now the due process that for let the deputy sign a particular letter and send it to the Chief Justice.
Yeah, well, so several questions could be raised. Now a controversial issue, I must confess, because we don't get clear cut procedural document for point at. But I think the thinking go tilt more to the Attorney General, because they are the principal legal advisor to the government, and also this is not a constitutional issue, and a process as well we don't be triggered. So where is the Attorney General in all of this? It's very important, because now the number one person where they legally advise the government, and not to another deputy. All right, so if you get a deputy, say like a deputy Attorney General, they will understand something. Okay, also to General not even signed on behalf of the Attorney General, if don't understand small, but I'm not sure say the Deputy Minister of Justice really a deputy of the Attorney General in a way, because the Attorney General not get deputy as provided for under the Constitution. We have to be very careful. This whole fight against the Attorney General, it don't begin from long. Last year, the whole of last year, we see how so a lot of criticisms come from the government and in agencies them and officials them against the reports them where they release. And up till now I speak to you, the 2019 Auditor General report not be debated by Parliament. Many people are thinking now that this is a grand plan, that has started way back in 2018, 2019.
Well, that's now Rashid Umbuya, the director for Legal Link. They make comments on the suspension of the Auditor General and one pine deputy.
The program Good Morning Salone, they continue. We come back to Ibrahim Tomi, Executive Director for CAL. We don't talk about the decision we State House been take last week, Thursday, Usai. We see them say the president suspend Lara Telopias, we na the Auditor General, and one of in Deputy Tamba Momo. We continue to look at this issue, Ibrahim Tomi. We don't listen to different civil society organizations as well as to waiting the makeup of this particular decision, and you serve the call on the president for, well, reverse this decision and go back and follow the right procedures for let go get legality. But also on the issue of legality, waiting at the legal implications them way it will get, because from the letter we see kind of the public, a letter come from the Deputy Minister of Justice and not the Attorney General. We been read a letter there for inform the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, but concern with and say the president gets but the work with Lara and in deputy be done they do. Waiting at the legal implication for let the Deputy Justice Minister sign instead of the Attorney General. We not get deputy at all.
Okay, let's just cut this to the chase. Even if that letter for don't come from the AG, we still not for remedy the situation. So let's just focus on the situation. In other words, the letter they talk about, the question of whether the Deputy Justice Minister get the authority for sign or for make that refer to the Chief Justice for the attention of the GLSC, whether it come from the AG or not. As we know it right now, the process, the steps have been kind of rushed or sidestepped. So let me just focus on that one. In other words, even if not from the age
But
that
they're
letter
really
come on,
very important
enough
also for talk about.
I believe, say, and this is the point now, I believe, say, if the president revoke, the process start again, that kind of letter that you most likely go send from the AG himself rather than from the Deputy Justice Minister.
It's unfortunate that we not get the government representative now this morning for explain as to whether or not waiting happen exactly, would that advise, would that for letting kind decision then they come out. But also at this stage, this question don't they and the people them want answer to them as to the AG we not actually see them clearly into all of this. So is it that it reserve himself in one for be seen in a situation where people will say he ought to know better at this stage?
I can't speak for the AG, but I can imagine that na internal office arrangement that one day for let in Deputy Justice Minister sign instead of him. But as I keep saying, even if this letter would they talk about become from the AG, that's still not for the remedy the breach they talk about. So for me, it's of really no moment. Whether it come from the AG or come from a deputy, because the fact that JLSC for them meet, resolve, refer the matter to. So let's don't bang our bunks on that. Let's just advise the president in the interest of the country and in the interest of rule of law credentials, follow do the right thing. It's a big issue, obviously, because. Over the years, I don't particularly work with the Office of the Auditor General. I don't work with Mr. Tamba Momo. These are people that we really passionate about the work they do. But they are human beings. We all are human beings. I make bad decisions. I don't get it right all the time. They are not kind of infallible. But I can tell you, say, based on me experience working with them, they have always really fought hard for protect resources. I remember several years ago, one of my conversations with Mr. Momo, I could see that he was really angry about some things. And so I can give that to them because of my experience. That is not to say, however, that as human beings, they can't go wrong in any ways. But the government has to make that case and has to follow the due process for make a tribunal look into the merits of any case that get against them. So
in cases like this, like all other constitutional cases, like some similar issue, this, you get mixed opinion. I mean, everybody gets, especially the lawyers. Mm-hmm. We don't see plenty write up them where they left the public more confused. So you know, things say the judiciary, we eventually now get for end up for do yes or no pandis. For consider for do more public education on the kind issues there, so we can for talk about the role of, for example, the different stakeholder, them, governments, the public, the judiciary, and all.
Yes, and obviously there's need for constant public education, not only by the judiciary, but the government agencies and even we self in civil society. But in this particular case, the judiciary, not to really technically, not to the judiciary. So the GLSC, yes, get the Chief Justice and some judges, but also get people that we know they work in the judiciary, get lawyers and other people in the judiciary. So it's a committee or commission way we not to basically judiciary they deal with them. But on the question of the need for engage more with the public, for address the kind of perception gap between the public and the judiciary, but also the institutions of governance, there is definitely need for more education and so that people can understand who side the genuine challenges and who side the challenges are man-made, and who side the challenges are financial, who side are technical, and move so that we can move collectively as a people.
Going forward, we dey wrap up the program now. CSOs will get the responsibility for check government. In this case now, we don't intervene earlier as CSOs. And now this, according to you, not do enough. We are not going to say that it lead to this, but perhaps for the prevent waiting happens. So in the event this decision stand, waiting at the role now of una. Yes, you don't consider, you don't talk, authorities don't hear you, but waiting more una need for do, or una get for do, as CSOs where they work on accountability and rule of law.
I generally hope that this decision will stand. I generally hope, because if it stand, you know what that means? It means the one that always visiting. I said it's really for people that they work in government or they work for government agency. It means you're not secure at all. At all, you're not secure. It means tomorrow the president will grab, regardless of any security way of taking away any public official.
So, on a plan for meet with president and in team?
Obviously, it's an option that we could explore as civil society leaders, because I believe, there's actually a mechanism right now where CSOs they meet with government. We've had 2 meetings, but this is not something that should wait for that process. I think we could set up a separate group and meet with them and advise them. Really, as people, we get stake in the governance of this country, but we don't want any direct benefit from government. Perhaps we are better placed for getting that advice for let's say I'm do all the same, regardless of how you feel about waiting up, regardless of your own personal issues. But let's just look at the interest of the country and make the right decision. I generally hope so not stand. I generally hope so go address them. And one final thing, maybe civil society leaders, we all get for take a hard look at ourselves. One way they intervene processes, law not get ulterior motive, law not go in for defend one person or expose the other person. Law just stay in the middle and do waiting right by the consciences and the people of this country.
So if this decision or reverse, it go in any way dents the credibility of the reports we go get for commot, taking into consideration that the Auditor General can sign for confirm say this now waiting team put together.
Again, I not feel saving the new. There are so many implications for this. Maybe. So whilst they remain suspended, they get for receive salaries. The people that they act get for receive salaries. So, but that's not the more important point I like to make. The more important point is that I not feel say the acting Auditor General will sign off on a report will not to him prepare. It had to see that happening. So there will be a gap, right? Allow him for come back, sign off on that report. Let the process play out. Let the process play out. And then by the time the process will play out, it will be a matter for the public, for judge, whether indeed you get, ultimately not for the tribunal, but even in the court of public opinion, as you can say, then go see your reasons where you get the complaints you get against them, and then go make their decisions.
Many thanks for joining on the program this morning. Ibrahim Tommy, Executive Director for CAL. Now, this edition of the program go left on plenty thank you to the production team, Michael Sambala and Alex Lawrence Kuruma. Produce the program, DJ Lavagi with technical support, Moses Kavra Mekona Siwi na Facebook. So till we meet again, Mabel Kaba, they say goodbye.
Stay tuned at 12 for we midday show and at 7 for we national news. But throughout the day again, we get more interesting programs. James, we wish you a blessed week.